Hey, you guys, we're going to talk strictly about the investigation today here on Big White Rabbit. It's my channel, as you know, because you're on it. But I'm sitting in front of it for goofies. But no, seriously, I've been, ever since the spring of 2020 when I found out the investigation was available online, I've downloaded everything and I've shown you that several times. But today I just want to talk, specifically about the investigation because I appreciate you guys being here and I know that people are coming to find out more about Prince and what's up with the mystery. Pick up any one of these magazines and they're going to tell you an outright lie because Paisley Park is the deepest cover ever known to mankind. So, the most prolific performer ever known to mankind for straight up 37 years. He was a mystery all his life to everybody that tried to follow him or learn anything about him. He didn't do interviews. He didn't allow them to have tape recorders. He didn't allow pictures. And I'm not talking about in the 2015 era. I'm talking about way back. There was this huge shroud of mystery surrounding Prince Rogers Nelson, and nobody got to know him. You had to be content with the little trickles of information that you would get from Rolling Stone or MTV or wherever else. But there was huge mystery surrounding him. And what I mean to say is the media would like us to believe that all of a sudden when he died, that his whole life became laid out before the media for them to tell. That clippings and pictures and articles and things were laid out for Dan Pipenbring's The Beautiful Ones book. And that he meant to share his life with us, but he just died before that could happen. That is not the truth. And that's, there's a lot more to this, and I'm going to try another way today to expose that to you by showing you the evidence. And I think the best place to start is probably with the fact that the media reports that Prince Rogers Nelson, better known as Prince, died from taking Vicodin with fentanyl in it, but he didn't know there was fentanyl in the Vicodin. Now, I need to present you with something. I'm going to show you some evidence in a minute, but think about this. If you follow the investigation, you know that Kirk is accused of going to Dr. Boo on the 14th and Dr. Schulenberg and getting Percocet, not Vicodin. Okay, so that's the other thing. They want you to know that Prince died from taking fentanyl-laced Vicodin, but Kirk was at the doctor getting medication for Prince, but that medication was Percocet. So we're going to start on that, and I'm going to zero in on the evidence, and I'm sure it'll be quite intriguing for you to know that from the DEA's evidence, only one of the pills that they tested even had hydrocodone in it, Vicodin. So yeah, again, what you see in those magic magazines, that's just jive. And we're going to talk about the truth here. So I'm going to cut right to that evidence because in my court of law, that's where we start. So up there is the actual DEA evidence. You can zoom way in on it and you can see that item 8, 9, and 10, those are the pills that they tested and what they had in them. This one, for instance, says no controlled substances identified. But anyway, what I did is I typed that up and you can see, take a screenshot. This is exactly what that thing says up there. There were pills that had lidocaine and ecstasy, and there were pills that had oxycodone. Again, there were no controlled substances identified. There was capsules and tablets. Vicodin are pills. They're not capsules or tablets. So there's a big difference too, because notice that it says tablet and capsule. So there's that too. So these drugs that were all over Paisley Park, they were either planted or they were there for another purpose. Only item 15 here, that was the one that contained hydrocodone. So that kind of crushes the media narrative that Kirk got the prescription drugs, which in this case were Percocet, for Prince because he was in pain. And then they sold to us that he was taking fentanyl-laced hydrocodone, so they can't keep their story straight. Now, I want to familiarize you right here in number 7. It says that Prince went to the doctor on the 20th, the night prior to the death. The test results showed Prince had tested positive for opiates, both hydrocodone and hydromorphone. Hydromorphone would be what's in Percocet. And the hydrocodone that he tested positive for, let's look at something. It says 253 NGs per liter, and over here the hydromorphone was 87 per liter. So that's very, very low, and I want to show you something. Those levels were so low that they were below the cutoff points, which you can see for hydrocodone here is 300 NGs per liter of blood. And here also for hydromorphone, it's 300 NGs per milliliter. So when we look at the test results that the DEA shows that he had, this level at 253, that's below 300. And the hydromorphone at 87 NGs per milliliter is below the cutoff point. So the reason that they mentioned those below the cutoff points is so that they could say that Prince was taking fentanyl-laced hydrocodone, which is, again, all part of the lie.
The pioneering musician Prince has died at the age of 57. His publicist, Yvette Noel Short, told the Associated Press the music icon was found dead at his home Thursday
from an accidental overdose of the painkiller fentanyl. Police found various narcotics throughout his Paisley Park estate. None had been prescribed to Prince.
There is no reliable evidence showing how Prince obtained the counterfeit Vicodin laced with fentanyl, or who else may have had a role in delivering the counterfeit Vicodin to Prince.
Here, the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office states that Prince Rogers Nelson, the decedent self-administered fentanyl at his residence. So, top left corner, place of death, place of injury, address of injury, residence. When someone chooses to end their life and self-administer fentanyl, then it would be called an injury, which is why it says place of injury and address of injury. The decedent self-administered fentanyl. I know, why would Prince want to do that to himself? But before you are a naysayer, let's look at some more evidence and what bodyguard Chris Gaither had to say about the night of the 20th.
Your mother was trying to make sure I was home for this kind of stuff to happen. But it's like when y'all came out with or whoever came out with the story, and they were saying the bodyguard that was saying that he disappeared and all of that, it really didn't make any sense, because that's against, like, everything that happened that night is against how we're supposed to operate. So I kind of felt like someone was trying to make sure I was home for this kind of stuff to happen.
Oh, you mean like Prince wanted to make sure you were?
Nah, not Prince. Somebody else. Because what it is to me, what it seems like to me is, because one, I know a pharmacy isn't going to mess up and give, fentanyl, because that's not just nothing that they are able to just disperse like that. You actually got to have the person who's in charge there sign off on it, because of the type of medication like this, and then they have to account for every pill, and then they have to do all of that. So for him to magically just pop up with it and all of that, to me, that's a big red flag. Like, that means somebody had to come in there, switch out his medication, and all that. Well, who could do that? Well, who could get into the premises and have their way through here without nobody really suspecting it? You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, okay, it was a party, but people can't wander around this house. So again, it has to be somebody who has the ability to move back and forth.
The media says nothing of a party on the 20th. That's what we just heard from Chris Gaither, that there was a party on the 20th. And that they don't know where he got the fentanyl, because the pharmacist has to pre-authorize it. And then he broke down how it was normally done. He goes on to tell us how he felt like somebody wanted to purposely make sure that he was at home, not at work that evening, so that they could go against protocol. So that sounds like something that might have been orchestrated, but not reported on. Andrew Reinhardt's, a New York pharmacist, called Paisley Park 28 times on the morning of the 21st between 12 and 12:50 p.m., between noon and noon 50. But the fact that a pharmacist called 28 times, the investigation said that they looked into it, and they said that he was a super fan attempting to get information on Prince's death. Could he have prescribed and signed off on the fentanyl, as Chris Gaither alluded to? Now, even though Andrew Reinhardt's, the pharmacist, called 28 times between 12 and 12:50, do you guys remember the news media wasn't released until 1 p.m. that Prince Rogers had died? So I contacted Andrew Reinhardt's, and I talk about it on other videos, so I'm not going to talk about it here because I want to stay on track with the accusations about the medications that were going around Paisley Park. So Andrew Reinhardt's called 28 times. He said he was a super fan and concerned, and he thought he could get somebody to pick up at Paisley Park, and that was it. However, his New York address is about a half hour's drive from Howard Kornfeld's New York address, so there's that. Now, also, I want to show you that there was we already know that there was 28 phone calls to Paisley Park between 12 and 12:50, but then why did Ann Tollefson, the Department of Regulatory Affairs, say that there were 0 calls at Paisley Park? Let's check that out too. September 12th, 2016, Dear Detective Wagner, I'm in receipt of the above referenced court order, etc., for call records April 21st, 12 a.m. through 11:59 p.m. Now, they say that there were no calls during that time period, but get this, you guys, 12 a.m. would be midnight through 11:59 p.m. That is noon. So the fact that Andrew Reinhardt's called between 12 and 12:50 is interesting, because why did Ann Tollefson only run the records from 12 a.m. to 12 noon? Why only for 12 hours? You know, why did they not include the 28 phone calls? Again, this just further lets us know that there is well, like I said, the biggest cover-up that the world is ever going to see, because the drugs were actually moving in and out of Paisley Park quite swiftly, more than you would ever believe. I'm going to prove it to you. So far we've covered the fentanyl, how they said Prince died of fentanyl-laced Vicodin, but there's no proof that there was even any hydrocodone in the pills. Only one pill tested positive for hydrocodone, and the whole world was told he died from taking fentanyl-laced hydrocodone, although nobody else in the area in Minnesota did. Don't forget that. And so anyway, on April 20th, when he allegedly had his blood tested, there were hydromorphone and hydrocodone, which can both be found in Percocet and Vicodin, but those levels were below the cutoff points of 300 whatever per liter of blood. So those factors were only mentioned to make it look like he was taking Vicodin. But then remember this, the big doozy. There was no fentanyl in his blood test on April 20th. However, on April 21st, there was 67.8 ncgs per liter of blood, enough to kill an elephant. If you were a cancer patient and changing your fentanyl patch every 3 to 4 hours, your levels would be down in the 6 to 7%, not 67.8. So the whole thing is a cover-up about someone who self-administered fentanyl. So before I talk about the reason for that, which maybe in the next video, we're going to talk about who else brought drugs into Paisley Park. Let's go to Andrew Kornfeld. Andrew Kornfeld allegedly sent from California to Paisley Park on the morning of April 20th. Andrew had in his possession bupropion, which is Suboxone, Ativan, possible Ambien, and suppositories to put up your bum so that you won't throw up. And they were miscellaneously strewn about in this baggie. This is an actual picture of those drugs. 2 major things, and I'm going to go quickly because I talk about this in his individual video. At first, when he's being interviewed, he tells the interviewer that he is pre-med, that he has not graduated, and that he's working on it. Because they say, do you hold a medical degree like your dad? And he says, no, I don't, I'm pre-med. The double identities that I talk about show that Andrew is a graduate of the University of California at Santa Cruz, where he studied both neuroscience and psychology. He is practicing pharmacology with his psychopharmacology here at the bottom with his father, Howard Kornfeld. So one moment he hasn't graduated and he's pre-med, and the next moment he is a graduate writing and co-authoring papers with his father, Howard Kornfeld. So who are we really talking about, and why did he bring the drugs? Now here, this publication, New and Emerging Drugs of Abuse, is co-authored by authors Andrew and Howard Kornfeld, as seen here. Psychopharmacology, you guys, that's why they're shown with the respirators. And then here, he was carrying the Wiley Black Book Handbook of Transpersonal Psychology, Psychedelic-Induced Experiences. So these people were having parties, Paisley Park after dark parties with drugs. And remember, Chris Gaither told us there was a party on the 20th. Before I get to what happened on the evening of the 20th, we have to continue to talk about the drugs so that you understand that Paisley Park was much more the psychedelic experience than the media was willing to talk about. We're going to move on to Dr. Schulenberg because he's the other guilty doctor. He has two identities as well. Dr. Schulenberg, they tell us that he showed up to Paisley Park on the morning of April 21st, coincidentally, with doctor records from the day before. However, it's interesting to note that when the Minnesota court dropped the charges against Schulenberg and Howard Kornfeld, seen here, the charges were dropped against Howard T. Schulenberg. Well, it's a little bit cut off, but you can see there's a Howard T. Schulenberg, okay? And when we research Michael T. Schulenberg, it gives the address of 675 Water Street in Excelsior, Minnesota. So check it out. There is a Michael T. Schulenberg, but there's also a Michael Schulenberg. All throughout the investigation, when they refer to Schulenberg and ask him where his office is, he says that it is 15450 Highway 7 in Minnetonka, Minnesota, not 675 Water Street. Now, also, it's interesting to see that on the prescription pill bottle, that it only says the name Michael Schulenberg, MD. It doesn't say Michael T. Schulenberg. So, again, with the double identities, because the DEA doesn't get down with not using the proper doctor name on prescriptions, you guys. It just doesn't work that way. Michael Schulenberg was also sent this image at 9:36 p.m. on the evening of April 20th. It's of the stairs, the back stairs that lead to the elevator in the back, around the back side. He claims he didn't see it until the next morning. However, he was up having a three-way conversation with Phaedra and allegedly Howard Kornfeld from California. So he was up having that conversation at about 10 o'clock. He says he didn't see this text at 9:36 until the next morning. So lies, no matter which direction you turn. What kind of doctor prescribes medications in the middle of an appointment, has somebody go get him and then bring him back, and prescribes Valium? The media talks about the clonidine. They say that was for blood pressure, but that will put you to sleep in an instant. They talk about the clonidine and the hydroxine also, which is for itching or mild anxiety. So that too, if you take enough of it, will put you to sleep. But what they don't talk about much is the diazepam, which is Valium. And Dr. Schulenberg prescribed that too, allegedly to help save someone's life. Nope, sounds like a drug party to me, double identity people. Speaking of Schulenberg, let's talk about the back entry that they took. Let's talk about the video that TMZ made famous. In the back entry, because Dr. Schulenberg is guilty of letting people into a building that was not only open at all, it wasn't open for patient care because they went in and used the other side. That's where he had access to liquid Valium because he gave vasectomies, per his testimony. This infamous video, everybody can turn on TMZ and see it. They say that this was April 20th, about 5 p.m. for the appointment. But what they don't tell you or show you, what they don't tell you, you guys, is that During the investigation, and you read the files, the things that Dr. Schulenberg confesses to, he says that on April 7th, he was contacted at 5:45 in the morning, and he showed up at Paisley Park at 6:45. He then gave two different stories, one that he transported Prince to his doctor's office, and then the other story was that Kirk brought Prince over to the doctor's office. So my point is that when you read that testimony that he's reporting on about April 7th, how he arrived at Paisley at 6:45, couldn't treat Prince there, and gave the two stories, he then says they arrived at his office. So what I'm getting at is the video that were shown, splashed all over TMZ and all those fake tabloid skagazines. Those images could very well be from the 7th, because on the 7th they talk about entering through the back door because no patients were around, and for privacy, of course, everything's private until after he dies. But anyway, I'm just trying to disclose to you guys in as many ways as I can how many layers thick the lies are. So again, at the risk of being redundant, what we are shown as video on the last day, which is April 20th, where Prince went to the doctor at 5, I am saying that could very well be video of what happened on the 7th. And that's, they just cover their tracks wherever they want to and piece together the evidence, alleged evidence anyway. So let's move on. Let's talk about Kirk Johnson. Man, he got a lot of drugs in this story, and the media only says that he got Percocet for Prince due to privacy. The black bag, Kirk's black bag. This black bag was seen on camera 4:15 in Moline, carried by Kirk Johnson. The pill that was in the bag and found was tested and contained oxycodone, and that pill was found in a pill bottle with Kirk's name on it. Here you can see Carver County says the contents of the prescription bottle located in the suitcase in Prince's bedroom and marked with Kirk Johnson's name. Those pills, one of the 10 tested, contained oxycodone. So these pills were in Kirk's possession and seen carrying by Kirk. Now above, up here at the top, it even says that the pills that were in the Aleve bottle, they try to make you think there was drugs everywhere in Paisley Park and this and that. 21.5 oblong pills that they say were Vicodin. It says the pills were tested and found to contain lidocaine, not hydrocodone as marked. The pills contained in the Aleve bottle were synthetic and made to look like a hydrocodone pill. So because they had pills around Paisley Park that looked like hydrocodone, better known as Vicodin, that's why they sold the story that they were fentanyl-laced hydrocodone, because that's what they looked like at the time. However, as we're moving on to see that Kirk had more than the hydrocodone in his possession, he also had Percocet and oxycodone thus far. Hilarious, because as part of the investigation, they like to show us these pill bottles in Kirk's name. Note a couple things. They're filled at CVS, not Walgreens, and they try to make it seem like he's innocently taking Zofran, I think that's for nausea, and vitamin D. However, when you discover further that those bottles had pills in them that didn't belong in them, along with vitamin bottles that had these clandestine Vicodin in them as well. But still, I guess Kirk felt the need to go to Dr. Boo, the dentist up in White Bear, because she has double identities too. And on the 14th, he felt the need to not only get Percocet from Schulenberg, but to get Tylenol 3 with codeine from the dentist. However, I've disclosed in his 2-hour-long personal video, there's no way he could be in all those places at once, and he had a lookalike flying out of Bloomington, Minnesota. So go check out his individual video for that, because we're sticking to the drugs. Sarah Boo, the dentist, never mentioned in the investigation file. She goes on to testify that she doesn't know why Kirk needed the pills from her if they already had a bunch of fentanyl or whatever. So she also mentions the prince, one of the prints that went down in Moline that was frothing at the mouth. So she's a character that the media doesn't speak about at all. She has an individual video also. This is some prescribing information that's provided in the investigation, but we know it's fraudulent as well because it's from a place called Health Designs, Inc., not Minnesota's prescription monitoring program. And then down here at the bottom, what I wanted to show you was that the St. Paul CVS, where Kirk was filling his drugs, they have a DBA, a doing business as a pharmacy, which I think is pretty shady as well. Why does a pharmacy need to do business as? No, shady, shady. Let's talk about the elevator real quick. We're showing these investigation photos, and this elevator picture has a rug in it. Do you see the rug on the floor? Take a close look. There's a rug in there. Ta-da! There's no rug here. It's on the outside of the elevator, out there. And look at the crack in the floor and the type of floor that's outside the elevator, okay? When we're shown the investigation photos, what are we shown? We are shown this Prince body lying on a blue carpet outside of an elevator on top of another carpet. Blue carpet, body on a carpet. Cement, linoleum floor, no body. This elevator still has the carpet in it. It's like the three bears. They're still sleeping in my bed. What's up? So these photos that we've all been shown, there's a Prince body on a rug outside the elevator that Fire Chief Johnson said he pulled Prince out, grabbed him under his arms, and pulled him out. So they must have laid him on the carpet later. Let's look at the elevator buttons in the elevator that doesn't have a carpet. Do you see how they're kind of, well, I'll show you the difference one moment. These screenshots show it a lot better. I couldn't find the other one. This is two different panels, two different elevators. You can see quite clearly. One has a bunch of sterling silver on it, and this one does not. Also, as part of the investigation, they said they went back to swab the wall because there was clear liquid splashed down on the wall. So they must have been talking about the sterling elevator where the self-induced fentanyl took place. Perhaps this is the elevator with the blue carpet in the Prince body. You can see a girl does her research.